everybody, welcome back to the channel. Well, today we're going to jump in and take a look at part 3 of the Grimsly Manor tutorial. And primarily what we're going to focus on is creating the sidewalk and creating the curb. These are the final 2 pieces that need to be cut out before we can move on to our next step, and that is the painting and gluing everything down, or at least moving in that general direction. So with that, let's jump off this tripod and take a look at the materials we're going to need and how we're going to go about doing the sidewalk and the curb. Okay, so what you see here in front of you is the Grimsly Manor and the garage. This is where we left it really the last time. Nothing has really been done or changed, and I'm trying to get it all in frame, and it's not really a big deal if it's not all in the frame. But what I want you to really pay attention to, this is the base, right? But we're gonna take this because I have more of these in the garage. These 2 foot by 2 foot by 1 inch thick project boards that I get from Lowe's. You can tell they're from Lowe's because they're green. And so I've got another one of these. So instead of getting that one, I'm just going to use the one I have here. So we're gonna pretend that this is no longer the base. This is a secondary panel, just like the base. Because of the same dimensions, it doesn't really matter. And then we're going to start kind of outlining how we're going to do our sidewalk. And so to start with, I want to take this board, and we can really move these houses off. I just kind of had them in there for weight, but I'm going to move those off. And then we're going to take the project board here and line up our boards on it. We don't really need all of this stuff on it. I'm just trying to keep it all in one spot. And so what I'm really trying to do is line this up to where everything matches, just about like so. Make sure that it's good on this side. And when I say this side, I'm talking back here. And it's pretty well lined up here as well. So then I'm just going to really trace this sidewalk. I think this will be the simplest way to do this, is just tracing this sidewalk. Okay, same here. Put the stair back in. And you guys are able to see all this, yeah? Okay, so I traced along here. I've now traced along here. So that is the beginning of our sidewalk. I'm just going to move this piece away. We no longer need that here. I've got that put away. I've grabbed our T-square that you saw in the previous videos. If you don't have a big T-square, highly recommend that you get one. And then I've got a ruler. And so you know from our previous discussions that I like to have my sidewalks based about 2 inches in width, right? So if this is the edge of the sidewalk, this is the center piece, I've got to come out 2 inches in every direction in order to make that work. So essentially, I'll take from the edge of this line approximately, now it doesn't have to be exact. I want to make sure I'm on the inch side. So somewhere about here to about here. That's about a 2-inch mark. Now, I don't know if you guys are able to see that. Let me readjust. So essentially, I'm taking the 2-inch side of the ruler, the inch side of the ruler, placing it on this line out 2 inches, and doing that. Now I'm doing that at various places throughout here. I need it to be straight, even though the back side is going to be cut almost identical because it's pushed up against the base of the building, the base of the foundation. So it doesn't have to be perfect back there, but it does need to be somewhat straight out here. So there's another 2-inch line. The easiest way to do this for me is to come out here right in the apex of this turn, right in the center of this turn, and come out 2 inches, which is right about there. Come right here to this side and go out about 2 inches. Right about there. Right about there. And then right about here. Okay, so now what I've done is I've got little marks at the 2 inch intervals, roughly speaking. And I'm going to remeasure that one because it doesn't look to be a full 2 inches to me. So I'm going to remeasure that with the ruler just to make sure. And it really, it is about 2 inches. So it's the appearance of not being quite there, which is fine. So then what we're going to do, and I'm going to try to zoom this out just a bit, and it doesn't really zoom, but I'm going to take this T-square, and I know that this side is square because I haven't cut any of it, so as square as it's going to be, I'm going to line the dots up about like so, and then I'm just going to make a line all the way to the end, just like that. Okay? So that's how that works. I'm going to do the same thing here on this end, right here. Now I've got, there we go, so that's not lined up. We'll get that lined up all square, right about like that. And then I'll come straight through here with the same thing. Okay, so that is sort of what the sidewalk is starting to look like. Now, I would like this sidewalk to be sort of rounded. There's a couple of ways you can do it. I'm just sort of eyeballing it. You could certainly take a compass and do that. You can just eyeball it. It's just a small corner like this. And I'm going to cut this using the Proxon, but I think that's a pretty good curve there. And if let's say I wasn't happy with that, it's a little too flat there, I could simply just bring it out a little more like that. There is no right or wrong, just whatever looks right. We don't want it to go too far out, so maybe somewhere in the middle of that. That's sort of what that is looking like. So now, since we can't cut a lot of this with the actual Proxon because it's too thick, I think we can get some of it done, maybe all of it done. We'll try it inside with the Proxon first, and if we have to go outside, then we'll take it outside and do that. So let me get the Proxon set up and we'll start cutting. Okay, I've got the Proxon set up. I've got my first board, or my board set up to start cutting, and I'm just gonna do some quick measuring with the board up there against the fence. Just want that to be right in a line with that. And that appears to be right in line, so we'll tape this down right here. And again, we're using the blue tape, the painter's tape, masking tape, whatever you've got. You're just trying to keep your fence from moving. One more check, and I think we're good. So we've got the setting on about 2.5. I'm actually gonna turn it up to about 3. We're gonna turn this on, and we're gonna start pushing right through this cut. And just double check, that is the cut we want. So here we go. Okay, a little bit straighter cut on that side, which is great. So now we've got to use this to kind of cut freehand this side of our project. I turn this on to 1, and now we're going to freehand the rest of this. I'm going to turn this off and just turn this so I got better control coming down this way. Okay, and so now I've got to do a couple extra things. I want to cut this piece out, this curve here, and I'm going to go on the inside line. So we're again on 1. We're going to freehand this, and we're just going to kind of come in through here. I'm going to get set up to where I can do this nice and smooth, and we're just going to kind of come right in through here. Okay, so something about like that. We can sand that down after it's completely cut. We can sand this down a little bit to make it a little bit more round if we need it to be more round, but I'm pretty pleased with that so far. So this is our sidewalk. The only issue is the thickness. We don't want our sidewalk to be that thick. We only want it to be about 1/4 inch thick. So how do we do that? Well, we bring our trusty fence back over, and we roughly set this to 1/4 inch, okay? So how do we do that? We bring this here, something right about like that. We're gonna shut this down. I'm gonna shut that down, tape that down. Okay. I think we are good to go. That's not gonna move. So now the way we're going to do this is simply, we're going to run this through just like that. And we're going to cut this out. So I need a little more room where I can see. We're going to bring this down to about we're going to put it to about a 2 or so. We're going to go fairly slow. And this is how it's going to look. Okay. Here is now our sidewalk in its entirety. Now, we've got extras here. We could make other sidewalks if we wanted. We'll absolutely save this. We'll save all of these for now because we're going to have to make our curb with some of this stuff. And so let's clean this up a little bit and bring our base back over and see how everything fits. Okay, so we've got our actual base now. I went and got another piece out of the garage. We have our actual base. We have the sidewalk that we cut. We have everything set in place. And so now, the moment of truth, will this fit in place? So ideally, it's going to fit snugly up against everything here. And once it's glued down, I think we're pretty well in business. There's a little bit of a gap here, but I can fix that by bringing these stairs out a little bit and not putting them all the way up to the front, and that will fix that. Same thing here, but by and large, and if you look at the edge here when it's level, it is right up against the edge there. And it is essentially, when it's level here, it is right up against the edge there. So the sidewalk now fits just fine. So that's step one. And so now we need to do our curb. And my question is, do we have a piece of scrap long enough to do the curb? I'm afraid that the answer is yes. I was scared for about a half a second. So this piece is going to be what we'll use lengthwise. And the reason I'm saying that is just so you can kind of see what I'm talking about here. Lengthwise, it's the exact same length, right? So we have enough to give us a full curb down here. So with the Proxxon already set to that, with that measurement, I'm simply going to cut this to the width first. So let me pause and get the Proxxon set back up so you can see that, and we'll go from there. Okay, so we got the Proxxon set back up. We're on 3. We're just cutting the thickness of this to match the thickness of our sidewalk since the measurement and the fence is already set. So simply come in here and just cut this to the desired width. And there's our curb. So it's a 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch all the way around. Just a little bit more than a 1/4 inch, not by much. So let's bring the base back over. Let's put our curb on and see how we look. Okay, so we got our base back up, sidewalks on, everything's looking fine. We've got our curb. Again, it's about a 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch. That's typically what I use because I need them to be somewhat standard. I need it to be a 1/4 inch by about 2 inches. So when I continue this display, should I continue this display, I know that the sidewalk is a 1/4 inch by 2 inches in width, approximately, and I know my curbing is about a 1/4 inch by a 1/4 inch all the way through. Okay, so we'll test fit this, and we see that it fits just fine. Obviously, the road will go down, and this will be then glued down, hot glued down to the road. And if you look at it sort of from this angle, you can see a little bit better of how that curbing is going to go on there. Now again, if I am going to continue this display this way, I'm not gonna put a curb down this way because I wanna butt another base up against it with a T intersection. Again, this would be a sidewalk over here as the entry of the base, and then another base going this way, and then we would just continue the curb going down that way as well. However, if you know that you're going to stop here, that you're not going to continue this, that, you know, whether this is, again, I build Halloween villages and some Christmas villages, but primarily Halloween. So if it's undecorated, so this could be Halloween, this could be Christmas, this could be Valentine's Day, New Year's Eve, whatever house you've got and the way you want to decorate it right now, it could be anything. But if you know that you're done with it, you're not going to extend it, this is the only piece that you have that you're going to display, then what I would do, in addition to this curb, I would make another curb and run it down this way so they would join at the top and at the side, and it would just be one circle of a display. Hopefully that makes sense. I'm not going to do that because I have a feeling that at some point I may want to continue this display this way. So we're only going to add the curbing at this point to the front of this display. Okay? So hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully you can see how everything is now starting to come together. That is all the pieces for this display, for now, that we need to cut. So what we need to do now is engrave and kind of texture this. So let me get set up for that and we'll come right back. Okay, so I'm back. I've got I've got a pen and a marker. Obviously we've got a ruler. You can't really see it in the back there, but sitting on the edge, I'm letting the wood engraving tool warm up. You saw that in the last video. That's what we're going to use here. Well, that's heating up. I am not a concrete laying expert. And so what I think I would like to do, if you use a pen or anything on the foam, it is going to leave marks to where that will always be there. So I almost always recommend using a felt tip, permanent marker. We're going to paint over all this stuff, but I think what I'd like to do is sort of have a line coming directly out from this sidewalk at this sort of an angle, basically going towards this corner over here. So something maybe about like that for that piece of the sidewalk. And then if I start maybe here, and again, I'm just sort of guessing at where these need to be, but if I kind of put another line like this, and then we turn this to where we can get a better angle over here, and we try to do about the same angle here. So we're about an inch or so there. And so that's about an inch and so there. So maybe about like that, something like that, and then maybe come down sort of like this is kind of how that would sort of look. And I'm just kind of looking at it, kind of taking a step back and saying, okay, that looks pretty good. So that gives me a basis then of which all my other marks need to go, because I need them to be symmetrical. I need them to be on purpose. I don't want to get down and have a line, at the very end. I just need to make them symmetrical. If we're starting here in the middle, we know that as we go this way, it's only going to look bad down here and bad down here if we need it to look that way. So it's better to sort of measure and put small little marks first. So if we were going to do that, if I want to put these, let's say every 2 inches, okay, so that's how our sidewalk is now going to look. So hopefully that makes sense. There's not a complete science to it. It's not really that critical. It just needs to look somewhat believable, and I like it to be a little symmetric. So that's the way I do it. There's no right or wrong way. You could do it a whole different way and still be fine, but this is my way, and so there we are. Okay, I've got a metal ruler. Always a good idea to have various types of measuring devices. Metal is good if you want to do something like this, where you want to put this down and be able to use the ruler to kind of do the cut for you. Okay, so that's the initial cut. Now, because of the blade that I'm using, you kind of get this cut. Let me kind of show you what I'm talking about here. Sort of just on one side. So you got a kind of an angle this way. It would be more realistic if I went back and did the same cut in the other direction. Okay, now the beauty of this is this is a Halloween village, so it doesn't have to be perfect, but you can kind of see the difference, hopefully, in that, right? So now we got to come through and continue the cuts down the front of the sidewalk. So just take your time. You kind of have to hold this up. I'm going to raise this up just a little bit so you can see. But essentially, we're just continuing the cut straight down. Okay, that is our sidewalk. Now we need to kind of cut it up because we're trying to model it after some worn concrete and more of a Halloween look. And then we need to texture it. So let me get set up for that. We'll come right back. Okay, so I've got two other tools that I want to introduce. You've seen these before. It's typical box cutter. These would be fairly sharp. This one's not as sharp as it used to be, but it absolutely works. And this is for kind of cutting up parts of the sidewalk. I'll show you how to do that. And then the tin foil, for the tin foil rolling technique to put the texture, just like we've done so many other places, onto this sidewalk. So with that, we don't want to get completely carried away, but the easiest way to do this really is just to kind of come in and cut and pull. Pull that out and discard it, and now you've got a cut in your sidewalk. And again, you can do these randomly. You don't have to have them all in one area. You can do them as pock marks into your sidewalk like that. They can be multiple to look torn up and ripped up. You don't have to go crazy, and I would recommend that you don't have any sort of a pattern to it, but you do have some beat up areas on your sidewalk, because it does help to sell the scene, okay? And so again, we'll just kind of go different directions. That's what happens when it's not sharp. It just kind of dents it. Sharp allows you to cut and pull like so. Maybe some pock marks down here. And something like that. So we don't want to overdo it, but we do want to have some marking in our sidewalk. So that's with that. We're done there. I'll just kind of take those out of the way. Let me adjust the camera. And then we'll start with the tinfoil rolling technique. And again, it's just roll it until it's believable. This will help put cracks in the sidewalk. This will help deepen the scars in the sidewalk. This will really kind of make it believable. And so let me get this one knocked out here and I'll show you the difference. So far, And then we'll just kind of go on autopilot for this. Okay, so here's the first several bricks, or the first several pieces of the sidewalk, and you can see how that's starting to look versus nothing at all up here. So big difference in the way the sidewalk is looking. So just keep doing this the entire length of your sidewalk. Okay, so I think we're done with the sidewalk for the most part. You can see the way that it's starting to texture and look. And so that's pretty good, pretty indicative of the way sidewalks that I create start to come together. So let's put this all back together. Actually, before we do that, we need to do the curb. So this is gonna curl real bad after we do it. It's because it's so thin. So we're not going to do a whole lot of it, but until we're about ready to glue it down. But we've got to get some of it done. So here we go. Okay, so that's how that's starting to come out. Pretty easy to do. We do need one side that is not textured, so we can glue that down. That would be that side there. So that's how that'll sit. And we'll get that placed on and see how it looks. So let's pull everything back over and see what it's looking like. Okay, so you can kind of see here, and I'm just really trying to focus on the curbing. Obviously, the street will be down there and everything will be put together, but you can sort of see how it's starting to come together as we bring our zoom up a little bit here. You can see the texture on the driveway up into the garage. You can see down onto the sidewalk. You see how these are the same height, so no big disparaging crack in there. And if there is anything, we could certainly fill that in with some putty or something like that. You'll never know, you'll never see it, so I'm not too awful worried about it there. As we see the stairway leading up again, this stairway can come out to, even with the sidewalk like we've got it, you can see this one here is about even with the sidewalk. And then you can see the sidewalk running all the way around the side of the house. So that is where we are with the sidewalk. Starting to come together, starting to take its shape. You can certainly see that. So the next thing we're going to do is look at doing some painting. And I've got paint coming this week. I'm almost out of the water-based black spray paint. So I've ordered another 6 cans from Amazon. That should be here in a couple of days, and then we'll have certainly enough paint to complete this. I like painting everything individually first, the black and then the grays and the whites and any other colors that we're going to use to kind of get it all to come together. And then after that, we'll start putting it all together and assembling it, and then gluing it down. But this is where we're at for now. So hopefully that makes sense, and it looks pretty good to you guys as well. So with that, let's close this one out. Okay, well, hopefully that all came together and made sense to you. To me, it makes sense, but I've also been doing this and I have the visions in my head of what I'm doing, and I'm trying to go slow and step by step so you guys can follow along and hopefully try to replicate one of these for yourself. It's not difficult to do. You do need, quite honestly, the right tools to make this job a whole lot easier. Are there other ways to do it? Absolutely. You may have a better way to do it. And if you do, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. But I think one of the most important things for me is to have the right tools to do the job that you're doing. It makes life in all areas, not just crafting and hobbying, so much easier, and life becomes so much more enjoyable when you're not frustrated when you're trying to do this. So I think it's starting to look really good. I think it's starting to come out really nice. And once we get the paint on, if there's any small little errors that you're just frustrated with, I try to overlook all that stuff. I know it's hard. I'm somewhat of a perfectionist when it comes to this stuff, but I've learned through time that if you make a small error, it's okay because paint takes care of so much stuff, right? You can cover it up with paint. You can make it look totally different, completely different. Nobody will ever see it. And so you just kind of roll with it. So if you screw something up or it's not exactly the way you want it, don't get frustrated. Just continue on. Let's get to the paint part and then cover that up and see if we're not happy enough with our display. I think you absolutely will be. So that's the kind of where we're going to stop today. So what's coming next? Coming next, we've got to get the paint in. We've got to get the paint on, the spray paint. I'll show you how to do all that. We'll do that outside, obviously, when the weather is nice, and we'll get that done. And then we'll start the dry brushing with the grays and the browns and the blacks and any other colors that we need to make this thing start to come alive and pop. And then after that, who knows? We'll start doing some of the grass around the buildings and start thinking about how we're going to light it. Where are the lights going to go? And so we've got a ways to go. So I don't know how many more tutorials, but a few certainly to get this one done and in the books. I'll also have you know that we've gone to a few craft stores lately, starting to get back into the feeling of crafting. I've gathered a few things to start one of the Pennywise dioramas that I told you about and what's coming up for this year. And so I think after I'm done with the Grimsly Manor vignette, I think I'm going to jump then totally off of Department 56 and villaging into another type of genre, which is going to be the Pennywise is my favorite. If you've seen the channel, you know that. So I'm going to do a couple of different displays featuring some of the, I believe it's called NECA, action figures or whatever they are, pretty lifelike looking. So I've started a small collection of those, and I'd like a way to at least demonstrate how to display them. I will never display them like that, unfortunately, probably, but I certainly enjoy building this stuff and then showing you guys how I'm going about doing that. So the first one will be coming up after we're done with the Grimsly Manor tutorial. Another thing, I've got another haunted house, Department 56, that you guys haven't seen, I don't think, but I like it. It's a resin piece, I believe, and don't quote me on this, I could be mixing this name up. I think it's Hazel's, and maybe that name is wrong, but it's Hazel's Haunted House, I think is the name of that. It's a pretty cool little resin piece. And I think it will look good on a right next to this one, only across the street. So that's why I'm considering expanding this one into a 2 vignette kind of, compartmentalized piece that you can put on or take off. So that may be coming around the corner as well. So you got that to look forward to. But hey, enough rambling for me. If you've enjoyed this video, make sure you click the like button. And like always, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please consider doing so. It certainly helps me out. It helps the channel to grow. And likewise, if you know folks that have not seen these videos, they love this type of stuff, go ahead and share it with them. Maybe they'll subscribe, maybe they'll pass it on to somebody else, and the channel will continue to grow. So I'm here to help you guys out. I hope you're enjoying that. I hope you're learning something. And I love answering your comments. So if you have questions or concerns, leave those and I'll get to them certainly when I can. I try to answer every single one of them. So, hey, with that, take care of yourselves. We'll talk to you again real soon.